Hello, I'm Lieutenant Mike Norman. I'm the Public Information Officer for the Cleveland Division of Fire. And today, as part of our Black History Month celebration, we're going to spend some time with retired Battalion Chief Johnny Brewington, who spent a number of years on the Cleveland Fire Department, separated in 2012. Chief Brewington, thanks for joining us today.
It's my honor and a privilege.
So I wanted to start with a little bit of your background. Tell us about when you came on the fire department, maybe what you were doing before you joined the fire department.
Well, I joined the fire department in January of 1981. Prior to that, I had an illustrious, enjoying period at John A. High School, followed by volunteering for the military. So right out of high school, I went into the military in 1970. Following the military, I did 4 years with the post office, and I entered the fire department. And the rest is, as we say, is history.
What keyed your interest in joining the fire department?
It was a relationship that keyed my interest. Initially, even when I went in the military, they offered me crash and rescue as an option. And at that time, that was not where my focus was. So I turned them down. I had a high school friend who went to Hiram right after high school. And he did 3 years, and then he decided he wanted to come into the Air Force. He joined the Air Force, and you know the position he wound up being? A firefighter.
Sure.
He was in Panama in the early 80s. He was still in Panama. But he decided to come back and apply for the Cleveland Fire Department. Hadn't been in Cleveland for about 6 years. He asked me to ride with him while he go down to the recruitment office. I followed him. Ronaldo Tovar, who later became a battalion chief in Cleveland and an assistant chief in Rochester, New York, was the gentleman who gave me the papers and said, well, why don't you sign up? Because your friend's signing up. We both signed up, and Albert Benjamin became a firefighter for Cleveland, and I became a firefighter for Cleveland. The unique thing about that situation, Albert Benjamin was once the fire chief for Woodmere. I'm the current fire chief for Woodmere.
That's right, you're still working.
Right, so relationships and friendships, I think are critical to get people interested into this field.
Absolutely. So class of 81 was a big class. How many people came on with you that year?
Well, in the January class, it was 50. In the March class, it was 100. And I believe in the June class, it was another 50. Now, off that list, off the 1980 list, they hired over 300 firefighters.
Right. So tell us about starting out. You know, how did your military background translate to the fire department, and how did you find the fire department as you started your career?
Well, as far as the translation from military to the fire service, although we call ourselves paramilitary, there was a total difference in the approach. You know, going to basic training as a teenager, and then coming into the fire service close to the age cutoff, a whole different thought process. And as far as, there were some adjustments I had to make. The good thing on the military side, I had worked off of ladders, aerial ladders, and things like that in the military, so I didn't have a problem with heights or being into small confined spaces, because I had to do that a lot in the military. But there were other things that I'd never had exposure to. So those were challenging but rewarding once I was able to get those skill sets. And for me, I tell most young firefighters, it took me 5 years to get the basic skill set to be a competent first grade firefighter.
What would you describe as some of the attributes for prospective firefighters? What makes a good firefighter?
Number one for me is you gotta have a willingness to serve. If you don't have a willingness for service, this is not the industry for you, because this is public service at the highest level, in my biased opinion.
And other attributes, I mean, certainly physical attributes and some of those things. It's a demanding job, certainly.
Well, yeah, it is, but I couch it slightly different, and because the physical aspect is always going to be there, but it's not solely depending on how strong you are, because we all use tools to carry out our job. That's why when I hear people harp on the physical part, it's a component, but you have to take your attributes and then you have to pair them up with the equipment that we utilize. To me, that's a stronger trait, your ability to adapt.
So you were promoted in the fire department. Tell us a little bit about that process. And it's certainly an opportunity not only for a good job as a firefighter, but you also have the opportunity for advancement. Tell us a little bit about that process and what that meant for you.
Well, the promotional process in itself allows a lot of opportunities, i.e. the larger the department, the greater the opportunities to go to a higher rank. And when you mention promotion, I couple that not also with rank, but also with position. There are some lateral positions to me that are crucial, just like promotions are. But to give you an example for myself, I came on in 1981, I made lieutenant in 1985, and there were numerous of individuals that made lieutenant, captain, battalion chief, and assistant chief in 85 because the department was on a career cycle swing. So I came in that career cycle swing. I made captain in 1987, I made battalion chief in 1993, and I remained a battalion chief until I retired in 2012. But again, in that career cycle, if you come in when a lot of people are cycling out, there are a lot of more opportunities. If you come in and there is not a cycle period, then the opportunities are reduced even if you're in a larger department. But the ability to promote is there, and it takes on various complex situations to promote. And the reason I say that, it's not just the testing. You're gonna have a testing factor, but after you get in that position, the ability to function, that's where the complexity comes in. And the test is a small snapshot of what your capabilities are, but once you get that position, if you don't continue to learn and to expose yourself to other departments, you get kind of stale.
You can do, certainly. So you were a leader on the fire department, but I know you also served as a leader in the Cleveland Vanguards. Talk a little bit about that element of your career.
Well, from the day I graduated from the academy to this present day, I've been a member of the Vanguards. The Vanguards are a subset of the North Central region of the International Association of Black Professional Firefighters. So I've been a member of all of those entities since the beginning of my career. And I've served in a leadership role for 14 years. I was the vice president for the International Association of Black Professional Firefighters for 4 years. I was president for 10, and immediate past, if I count those, for 2.
Speak a little bit to the advocacy that those groups do and the importance of having those organizations.
Well, for one of the tenets for us is community outreach. We are a fabric of the communities that we serve. So that was one of the things that attracted me, and it was a carryover from my military days. So, and we advocate for inclusion inside of public safety, all public safety. I joke with a lot of people that work for Cleveland, especially during my tenure. There's only so many jobs in the police department, the fire department, or EMS. So you're going to always have more qualified candidates than you have positions. So I know a lot of people that came through programs as it related to what was called the labor recruitment program. And to give you background, most people don't understand that the labor recruitment program was a IAFF initiative.
Right.
But it was an initiative to increase the inclusion nationwide. The gentleman that came to Cleveland, his name is Roscoe Hager. He was from Fairfax County Fire Department.
Mm-hmm.
That's the same fire department that the current president for the IAFF came from. They were friends. He came in, and the model program that Cleveland utilized that recruited me was that program. A lot of people don't know that history, so I try to share that as much as possible.
Speak a little bit to the importance of inclusion and having a representative fire department in terms of representative from minorities.
It's very important. And a lot of people don't understand the history of the inclusion as it relates to the Cleveland Fire Department. Most people know the court part of it, or they believe they know the court part of it. But a lot of people don't realize that the labor recruitment program was an IAFF initiative.
Which is the International Association of Firefighters, which represents firefighters across the United States and Canada. Just for people that may not understand the acronym. Right.
And I figured that would be better coming from you than coming from me. And the gentleman that brought that initiative here, his name was Roscoe Hager. He was from Fairfax County Fire Department, and the current president of the IAFF also is from that department. So I always try to stress that history. And that program is the program that actually was utilized that allowed me to come on to the Cleveland Fire Department. Now, naturally, there was court action in there. And from my particular entrance exam, the top 4 people were people of color. Out of the top 10, there were 7. And I wasn't one of those 7. I was 21 on my list.
Okay.
And I always kid with, he retired as a lieutenant, Pioneer Lane. He was number 1. Elijah Spann was number 2. I could name the others, but I'm not gonna tie it up with time. But it goes to show you when you put effort into programs like that, now you can produce outstanding results. As we talked about, over 300 people hired off of that list.
That's outstanding. And I think that a lot of those programs that Harold Schaetberger and the IFF have brought to bear, that from the recruitment aspects to it, to the coat drives that they do, there have been a lot of aspects of that, certainly. So what was the culture like when you started in the Cleveland Fire Service, and how did you see that evolve maybe during your time?
I won't say it was inclusive, because that would not be the truth. But it was, okay, you're the new person. We want to see what you're made of. That was part of it. Now, my entire career, we stayed in court too. So every time there was a court case that was active, there was always lines of separation. The times when you saw us coming together was when the heat of the battle. In the heat of the battle, people normally don't have time to think about what other activities are pressing their thought process.
Yeah, that's been a part of it. And did you see that evolve through the course of your career?
Yes, but I also saw it revisit. Everything would cycle. If a court case was out there, you saw the division. There was no two ways about it. The only time I didn't see the division was 9/11. 9/11 was the one time, other than being a new cadet, where you saw the unity. We unified around the fact that 9/11 hit our industry so hard.
Yeah, and I think certainly, like you said, when we're responding, when we're working, that's definitely when you see us working and acting as a team. Talk to people who might be thinking about a career in the fire service, what it's meant for you, what it's meant for your family, what a great opportunity it is.
For me, it's been a blessing. I tell that to anybody, and then, like I said, It wasn't a blessing I originally had a decisive thought process about. It was a blessing that a friend helped me backdoor into, i.e., all three of my children were able to attend college, and they attended college off of my fire department salary. Now, although I had one that was an athlete and two were scholars, they still, even though they had that, the majority of the funding came from my salary as a firefighter. It allowed me to purchase 3 homes. So the opportunity financially is tremendous for you as an individual, but more so for the community that you choose to live in.
And even in retirement, I mean, some of those, the security that you have in your retirement, that's another important benefit. The benefit package, you know, some of those things are really important as well.
Oh yeah, well, in today's society, the fire service is one of the few professions that still has a pension system that you hopefully don't have to worry that it'll close out on you. You know, some of our peers in other professions started off with a pension system, and that pension system wasn't sustainable.
I'm really enjoying our conversation. We're going to take a break, and we'll be back with some more information with retired Chief Johnny Brewington.
Would you like to stay involved in America's favorite pastime game? If you love the sport of baseball and have some free time, then say yes to umpiring. There's a shortage of umpires in the Cleveland area, which means plenty of opportunity to work baseball and softball games in the Cleveland recreational leagues this summer. Training classes will start in February. To get the best seat in the house and earn additional income, contact Colin Robertson, President of the Greater Cleveland Umpires Association at 216-314-5594 or email CROBERTN50@gmail.com. We'll see you at the ballpark.
Welcome back. I'm Cleveland Fire Lieutenant Mike Norman, the Public Information Officer, and we're spending some time today in celebration of Black History Month with retired Battalion Chief Johnny Brewington. Chief Brewington, you have seen the whole span of a fire career and lived to tell about it. What would you tell someone who's a prospective recruit, somebody who's considering a career in the fire service?
Well, I would mention the 3 R's. First, they're interested, so I tell them the value of recruitment and how to be able to navigate that process. But after recruitment is retention. So I would explain it's important to, besides getting on the job, remain in that field and continue to grow. But the realization that eventually you want to get to a successful retirement. And I try to plant that in a young person's mind early. It's like anything. It's pre-planning your career just like we pre-plan for buildings.
What were some of the big events that you saw during the course of your career? Are there fires that stand out? Are there things that you remember when you think back on your time with the Cleveland Division of Fire?
Yes, all of them are not positive. Some are negative. The first fatality that I ever experienced, I was assigned to station number 30. I was on the engine, and it was close to the end of our shift. Came in 8-something in the morning. It was close to Glenville High School. 3 children perished at that fire. There was nothing we could have done to save those children from the response side. When we got there, they were already dead. And I carried this to my grave because those children's father worked the last shift. He was getting off work, coming home, and he found out that his children were dead. So that one is etched indelibly in my fabric. There are others throughout my career that some had positive results. Firefighter Lugo and myself helped rescue a lady, and we got accommodation for that. I was a captain at the time, and I was on ladder 36. But two that really stick out, Etna plating fire on Union. That fire sticks out because it made national news.
What year was that?
It was I want to say in the 90s. I'd have to look it up.
Sure.
That's one of the disadvantages as you age. You can't precisely give a date, but I mean, it's not hard to find. It made national news. And there was another fire. I was a battalion chief at the Etna Plating Company, but I was at that time the acting AC running that. That's why I remember it. The outcome was positive. It was a lot of drama inside of that positive outcome. And then there was a fire on the west side. I was roving. It came in as railroad ties. It was the largest dollar loss I've ever been associated with because it wasn't railroad ties. It was some young children accidentally started some papers on fire, which communicated to the ties, and it was close to an industrial complex. And that complex had a lot of issues. Now, fortunate, no one got injured. We minimized the loss as much as possible, but my fire report, if it's still in the Bureau, is this thick.
We've talked about the different backgrounds that firefighters come from, and I'll put you on the spot a little bit. One thing that has stood out in my career is a sense of family that we have as firefighters, whether it's an individual crew, I mean, certainly the department as a whole, but on individual companies that you serve on. Did you have the same experience as you were coming through the fire department?
Well, yeah. Well, I was Hawker Corrigan's cadet.
Okay.
So, and Hawker was a good person to break me in. So I had a bonding with my senior person. He was a senior guy on the company. I wouldn't say I bonded with my earlier officers, but I bonded with the senior person. So I learned a lot from Hawker, or Thomas Corrigan by his given name, and God rest his soul. And yes, there were companies that I worked on that we operated as a family. Lieutenant, I had a captain, Captain Ingersoll. I came in to report a day early, introduced myself. Captain Ingersoll gave me a lecture. And I said, well, Cap, I don't do any of those things. He said, well, I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about my whole crew. So, and I expect you to enforce that for my whole crew. Mm-hmm. And Captain Ingersoll was a lieutenant under Captain Haney from Squad 2. So, but very valuable. Chief Rockman, as I call him, he was my recruiter. He was also my first lieutenant. And I learned so much from that man. I could go on and on. Chief Guyton, Chief Bergeon, Chief Lovett, Chief Huff, Chief Mitchell. There were so many individuals that were like mentors that you could go to. Tovar became a chief, all of them, you could sit down. I'd work one shift, get off the next morning, and we would all go sit down and discuss different situations that help us better prepare and be able to deliver service for the citizens of this great city.
Well, you mentioned 100 years of service with all those chiefs that served, and certainly want to thank you for your service and thank you for your time sitting down with us. I want to thank you for watching. I'm Lieutenant Mike Norman, and stay safe out there, Cleveland. Thanks for joining us.